What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today, we have to head back over to the People's Republic of Chicago to speak on Emperor Brandon Johnson, because Emperor Brandon Johnson continues to show and prove why his 6.6% approval rating is not only accurate, but justified. But before we get into that, I want to read this latest X post of Brandon Johnson for you here. And it reads as such: excited to spend the day in St. Louis rallying support with my sister, Mayor Tashara Jones. As the first Black woman to be elected mayor of St. Louis, her leadership is not only historic, but a testament to what can be achieved if we continue to work together and fight for progressive values.
Hey, St. Louis. This is Mayor Tashara Jones here with my brother mayor from Chicago, Brandon Johnson. You know, I am just so humbled that when I put out the call to my brother and sister mayors that they answered. Back in March, the mayor of Tacoma, Washington came, and now the mayor of Chicago is here. So thank you, Brandon, for coming to St. Louis to help me get across the finish line.
Of course. Listen me just say this really quickly. St. Louis, you all have someone special here. Mayor Tashara Jones and her commitment to working people is just an incredible example for mayors across this country. Your investment in young people, your investment in mental health and economic development, that's exactly what St. Louis deserves. So on behalf of the city of Chicago, we're here to just encourage all of the residents of this amazing city, which shout out to Florissant and of course in Hazelwood East. My wife is originally from this area, so I'm here just to support our sister, your mayor, to make sure that those investments that she's made, that we can continue to grow our economy. So get out and vote. Just 11 more days to go. Tashara Jones, you all know who you all have. I know who you all have. So let's make sure we keep what we have.
Now, how did this go? How did it go for Mayor Tashara Jones in St. Louis, who had a mayor with a 6.6% approval rating vouching for her in her city? Well, I think we all know how that went. That was a rhetorical question. Spencer wins St. Louis mayor race, ousting Jones in a bitter rematch, and Jones got completely destroyed. Look at this here. We're not going to spend too much time on it. Cara Spencer, currently the 8th Ward Alderwoman, beat Mayor Tashara Jones on Tuesday 64 to 36% in the final unofficial results. 64 to 36. This woman got completely destroyed. But then again, you did have an emperor in Brandon Johnson who has a 6.6% approval rating vouching for you. I could have told you that that wasn't the move. I don't know what would make you think that that's a good idea, but yeah, it looks like the people made their choice and you weren't it. But that aside, this is one of many failures of the Emperor Brandon Johnson. I want to get into some more, serious news and information concerning how he's destroying the city of Chicago, right? This goes to show how delusional this man is and how much he truly does not care about the city. He does not care about his citizens, and he 100% most certainly does not care about the children of Chicago. This man does not care. Exclusive: Mayor Johnson praises CPS model that produces failing grades. Let's get into this article here. A candidate Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson acknowledged the rocky road he traveled that led to a tentative contract agreement in an exclusive one-on-one interview Wednesday afternoon. He touted new investments in struggling neighborhood schools, but will they turn around their fortunes? The mayor praised the $1.5 billion four-year contract deal that includes a 4 to 5% raise for teachers, smaller classroom sizes, and more classroom prep time. And I quote, "I brought the people together. We have labor peace, We have some real wins for Black history. It protects Black history. It protects LGBTQ students. Can we pause for a moment? You see what I was talking about the last two live streams? And now that I've been pointing this stuff out more and more, you're gonna start. You're gonna see it all the time now. In the face of foolishness, just talking nonsense about how I'm protecting Black history, Black this and Black that. I'm also protecting LGBTQ students. Yeah, these children are failing like crazy. You already know where this news story is going. All right. Test scores are at the bottom of the bottom. I'm talking about atrocious, but we're protecting Black history. None of that means anything when your kids can't read, can't do math, and they can't write. All this other stuff is just to get an emotional reaction out of you to make you feel good or whatever it's supposed to do to you. Because, like I've been saying, it's mind control. In the face of me failing as a mayor, let alone in the face of us failing as a party, Democrat Party, when all else fails, I'm protecting Black history. I'm also protecting LGBTQ, but all your kids are failing out. Anyways, let me carry on and reel it on back in. Sorry about that. And I quote, it protects Black history. It protects LGBTQ students. It protects veteran teachers, overwhelmingly women, the mayor said in an exclusive interview with Fox 32 Chicago political editor Paris Schultz, or Schutz, however you say her last name. But he singled out one other provision, an investment to expand the number of sustainable community schools that provide wraparound social services from 20 to 50. This is where schools work with the neighborhood to secure additional resources to respond to the unique needs of that particular school, Jones said. The other side, these schools have been shown, these schools have been some of the poorest performing in the district, according to a study by the libertarian leaning Illinois Policy Institute based on data from the state board education. On average, they have the worst reading scores, the worst math scores, the highest absentee rates, the lowest graduation rates, the highest dropout rates, and they cost more per pupil, said Illinois Policy Institute Senior Director Maley Smith. Mayor Johnson touted the Southside's Diet High School as a sustainable community school success story, especially considering its recent boys basketball state championship. But the IPI study shows Diet has one of the poorest outcomes of all CPS high schools, with only 4.5% of students reading at grade level and less than 1% at grade level math. Additionally, 70% of students experience chronic absentee. Johnson says the study is wrong. He's just outright denying the test scores by saying it's wrong. And how does he get to deny this? Here's how he denies it. And of course, he gets into the foolishness. Of course, you're going to have a right-wing extreme group that wants to minimize the progress of poor children. Here's what I'm committed to doing to make it that every child has access to local community schools, Johnson said. This man is literally denying the test scores. This isn't something that the Illinois Policy Institute is making up out of thin air. This is a research paper based and rooted in test scores. This isn't a survey that they took. This wasn't a poll. These are the actual test scores. And Brandon Johnson is saying, yeah, they're wrong. Well, why are they wrong? Because, of course, they're a right-wing extremist group. This is the justification to dismiss failing your children at the expense of, let's be honest with what's going on here, lining their pockets up with your taxpayer dollars, because that's what we're getting ready to get into next. And this goes to show that Donald Trump was right about everything, okay? Including how we pay the most per pupil as far as schooling is concerned. We pay the most money and spend the most money on these children while turning out the worst grades. Okay? Look at this here. Mayor Johnson celebrated Diet High School, where only 2% of tested students can read at grade level, and none can do math at grade level, as a great example of a schooling model that Chicago Teachers Union's tentative contract plans to boost. Let's get into this. Apparently, this school is a success not because of its test scores, but because the kids won the state championship in basketball. Chicago Public Schools and Chicago Teachers Union have a tentative agreement for a new contract, including for 50 more sustainable community schools, a model with some of the worst academic outcomes in the district. Diet High School is one of 8 schools among 20 sustainable community schools in CPS. Only 2% of 11th grade students can read at grade level on the SAT in 2024. None were proficient in math. Both the reading and math proficiency rates were about 20%, excuse me. Both the reading and math proficiency rates were about 20 percentage points lower than the average proficiency rate district-wide. About 75% of Diet students were chronically absent. Yet Diet boasts a higher graduation rate than CPS average, with an 87% graduation rate compared to 81% district wide. Did you hear what I just read? The test score, these kids can't read, they can't write, they don't know math. But yet this school has a higher graduation rate than the rest of the district does. How is that possible? They're just passing these kids along. They're setting these children up for failure. You don't have the basics down pat, but are being sent out into the world now as adults to fend for yourself. They're literally sending these children out to fail. This is what's going on here in Chicago. Supporters claim sustainable community schools extend the functioning of a school beyond the traditional realm of education. I have this highlighted here in purple for a reason, and we're going to come back to it. But let me read it now, but we are going to come back to it. The model integrates additional student services coordinated by the school with outside organizations, okay, such as housing or food assistance, medical or dental care, mental health services, English language, or parenting classes. CTU and the Illinois Federation Teachers Union, or excuse me, CTU and the Illinois Federation Teachers claim the model promotes improved outcomes, such as decreased absenteeism rates, increased student performances, and improve school culture. How is the Chicago Teachers Union and the Illinois Federation of Teachers claiming this in the face of what the actual data and test score shows? These people are beyond crooked, man. With dwindling enrollment in CPS, CTU markets the expansion of sustainable community schools as an attempt at fortifying neighborhood schools, but data from the Illinois State Board of Education shows CTU and IFT's claims are wrong. The outcomes for students at these costly schools are worse than other district schools, producing inferior academic results and greater absenteeism. In the 8 Chicago high schools using the sustainable model, proficiency is lower and absenteeism is higher than the district average. Every sustainable community high school, I repeat, every sustainable community high school in CPS had lower reading and math proficiency than the district average for high schools. Fewer than 1 in 10 juniors at Chicago's sustainable community high schools could read or do math at grade level at the SAT in 2024. In 2 high schools, including Diet, not a single 11th grader could perform math proficiently. But get this, these poorer results come with a much higher price tag. 6 of the community high schools spent more per student than the CPS average of $19,908 in site level expenditures per student. At Uplift Community High School, per student spending reached nearly $50,000 per pupil in the 2023-2024 school year, nearly 30,000 more than the average district. Nearly 30. Where is that money going? Where is that money going? Because it clearly isn't going to educating these kids in these schools that perform significantly worse than the rest of the district. They're spending 30,000 more per pupil. Where is this money going? And that brings us back here. The model integrates additional student service coordinated by the school with outside organizations. Once again, these schools are partnering with outside organizations such as housing or food assistance, medical or dental care, mental health services, English language, or parenting classes. They're partnering with outside. We all know what that means, man. We all know what that means and what that is. So money grab. These people are just passing money along to their friends, their allies, whatever you want to call them. They're just passing this money along at the expense of setting your children up for failure. They're just passing money along coming from taxpayer dollars in Chicago, lining up their pockets at the expense of your child graduating from high school anyway, despite not knowing how to read, write, or do math. And in the face of the data, they completely ignore it and say that it's right-wing garbage. And what are they going to do? CTU, Chicago Teachers Union, is adding 50 more sustainable community schools despite poor results. This is crazy. Regardless of what the data says, regardless of what the test scores show, we're going to expand this program. And this is the kind of foolishness that Brandon Johnson is going to walk away with, talking about, I've made historical investments. We're investing in historically disinvested neighborhoods, and we've made historical investments. They're making all these investments. That's his favorite talking point. I'm making investments, and it's in investments. They make all these so-called investments, none of which produce any fruit. None of them produce fruit. It only produces failing grades and low test scores. Meanwhile, he's going to walk away with his head high, talking about how he did all of this historical investment in these historically disenfranchised communities that produce no fruit, but got him and all his friends filthy rich. And with all that being said, that's going to do it for today's news, man. So hit the like button on your way out. Share this video on your social media platforms. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. And please don't forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram's in the description box below, and will be pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. And until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.